I'm 27, and I just got divorced from Sarah. She did it, and they got married, and after 2 years of marriage and 4 years of living together, it all fell apart. Background: I think it's worth telling you a little bit about the background. We were introduced by mutual friends at a board game party. Yes, not the sexiest story. But, in essence, it was the right decision for us, because we are both introverts, at least as far as I know. Sarah worked as an administrator, and I had recently gotten a promotion at my IT job. We got along well, we had a similar sense of humor, we liked going out together, but we liked staying home and watching movies even more, and we both wanted to save up for a house eventually. When we got married, Sarah told me she wanted to focus on our home rather than her career. She talked about how we would make our apartment cozy and maybe one day start a small business right there in our apartment. I was making good money, not rich, but enough to support us both if we were careful. So I agreed. Looking back, maybe that's when things started to change, even though I didn't realize it at the time. Our apartment isn't huge, but compared to typical downtown apartments, it feels spacious. The rent is too high. But what isn't these days? But I wanted Sarah to feel safe walking around the neighborhood. Now I constantly heard her say how lucky she was that I had found her a nice place to live and how glad she was that our building had a concierge and a security system. But that fall, all her friends lived in newer buildings. I work 9 to 5 in high-tech, 20 minutes from home, but I stay late because there's always something that needs to be done. I used to love the overtime pay, and she would make little dinners to thank me for staying late. But lately, when I text her that I'll be late, she just rolls her eyes, as if telling me to stay at the office all night instead of dealing with real problems. I remember when I got promoted, she threw a whole party, bought a small cake, called me her rock, and said how lucky she was to have a husband who worked so hard for our future. She hugged me and said, "I don't care how long you work. I know you're doing it for us." But now she's not the same Sarah. The woman who once called me her rock was now almost a stranger, cold as ice. I chalked it up to mood swings. It was a typical Tuesday morning. I woke up and was getting ready for work while Sarah was still asleep. This time, I left her breakfast in the microwave as usual, even though she had started objecting to my simple meals over the past few weeks. She used to get up early so we could have breakfast together, because that was our time. But in recent months, she had been going to bed well after midnight and hadn't sent me any thank you texts. Maybe that should have tipped me off. It was a stressful day at work, and the new terrible software they had made us install had just crashed half the company. I couldn't look at my phone until almost lunchtime. Then I realized that Sarah hadn't sent me a single message all morning, which was unusual. She usually sent me random messages throughout the day, videos that made her laugh, pictures of what she was cooking, what to make me for dinner. I wasn't worried and figured she was out running errands, so I called her and had lunch. It was a bad idea from the moment she picked up the phone. The patient's voice was subdued and hurried, the voice of someone who didn't want to be heard. "Hi, I'm busy. Can I call you back later?" she said and hung up. Or so she thought. And that's when everything started to fall apart. I was about to hang up when I heard noise, people laughing and plates clattering in a restaurant. Sarah's voice reached me again, but I realized she wasn't talking to me. Of course, some would say I should have just hung up, but you know what? I was completely confused. Sarah said she was cleaning the kitchen that day. Why was she at a restaurant? And what was that strange voice? I kept listening. Call me what you want, but I didn't hang up, and I'm very glad I didn't. She's probably having lunch with a friend, I thought. She doesn't work, but she hangs out with a group of friends who are all housewives, or what we used to call stay-at-home moms. But then she spoke in that voice, that sexy voice you use when you're trying to seduce someone. She laughed and said, "Sweetie," to someone. I felt a little nauseous, that feeling you get when you realize something is about to go wrong. I froze at the table, forgetting about my half-eaten sandwich. The more I listened, the worse it got. She said you were very handsome and that we should do it more often. Then she started making fun of me, mocking me and saying, "You're so stupid," and laughing. I was stunned. It couldn't be true. It couldn't be true. My brain frantically searched for a way to dismiss it. Maybe it was a joke between friends, or was she just teasing her friend? But he was with me. He was flirting with her so beautifully, laughing, and all my assumptions were shattered. That wasn't her. That wasn't us. I was shaking, blood pounding in my head. I told myself, hang up, don't listen, don't believe her. But I couldn't. Part of me kept hoping she would say something ridiculous, something that didn't fit with what I knew, but she didn't. The same man who didn't sleep on Fridays so she didn't have to, who supported her decision to stay home with the kids, who paid the bills while she drove around town in her air-conditioned car, who tried so hard to give her everything she could possibly want, turned out to be a complete fool. The voice, and possibly the engagement. When Sarah talked to this man, her guard came down and she became soft and flirtatious, her voice making my heart ache and miss her when we were together. "You never know what to say? I like that you understand me." Every word made me sick. I'm an IT specialist, so recording is second nature to me. We constantly record meetings and calls. I had a recording of a meeting with a client from a month ago on my phone. Without thinking, I pressed the record button. That decision probably saved me a lot of trouble in the future. What I saw on the recording. Sarah was crazy about this guy. "Because you're not like him at all," she continued. "He only talks about the budget and the house all the time. It's so boring. You know how to have fun." It hurt. I paid for this phone she was using to insult me. And then, just so I wouldn't forget, she told me about their secret dates. On the nights when I was working late, the time I spent working overtime to give us a better life, she was spending with him. The job I dreamed of and bragged about that night. She confessed to this guy that I worked too much and that it bothered her. The worst part was that she laughed at me, not modestly like a little girl, but loudly, from the heart. "That guy, working on his computers," she recalled. "Now he doesn't even notice when I try to dress up. But you always notice." Part of me wanted to shout into the phone that yes, I stuttered. I let my mind wander to the what-ifs, how her eyes lit up when I surprised her, how she rested her head on my shoulder at the end of the day, how she once told me she loved me because I made her feel safe. But at some point during that trip, it wasn't enough. To achieve this, I sacrificed myself, trying to build a future for us that she never saw. I didn't have a place where I could take her out to dinner every week, and I couldn't afford to buy her new clothes all the time, not when I was the one putting a roof over our heads, paying the bills, and trying to provide stability. And now she was laughing at me through someone else. They chatted, and I recorded. Part of me wanted to hang up, but I needed proof. That's what I learned on Reddit. You need proof. The next thing I heard made me sit up in bed. "This new bistro is amazing," she said. "Thanks for bringing me here." I knew where they were. That lovely place in our neighborhood that had opened a month ago. Sarah had called it a rip-off when I suggested it as a place to celebrate our anniversary. I guess it wasn't much of a splurge for her date. I was sitting in my office at the newsroom in a daze when the door opened and Steve, my fellow reporter, walked by. I must have looked worried because he stopped and asked if everything was okay. I must have been pale as a ghost, cold, sick. I said I might leave early. He nodded and agreed to cover for me. Steve's a good guy. The recording was still going. Sarah and the guy were sitting and talking again. "Maybe at some new sushi bar," she said. She giggled softly, the kind of laugh I used to make her laugh, a real free laugh. "He never suspects a thing," she said. "He thinks I'm just cleaning the house like usual." The restaurant was only a 15-minute drive from the office. I drove past it every day on my way home. That guy, whoever he was sitting there right now feeling smart. And the person I had been carrying around for 24 months, my wife, was laughing at me. I exploded and drove there. When I first saw them, they were together. I sat there and watched. Should I go in? Call her again? Act like nothing was wrong and drive away? Then I heard her laugh, as clear as the day we met. A laugh I hadn't heard in months, because apparently I didn't deserve to be laughed at. Suddenly, everything became clear with the dazzling clarity of hindsight, with that slow, terrible dawn when years of turmoil erupt like a volcano. And every time I complained that I was so tired that, "There's no way I'm going out with you tonight," but today I cleaned the entire apartment from floor to ceiling before you woke up. I was about to leave. We had a very tense conversation about divorce. As soon as she heard the word, she wrote that it was a punch in the stomach. Her crocodile tears dried up in an instant. Her face became hard as stone. "You can't just decide that," she said sharply. "We need to discuss this. You're going too far." I quietly and discreetly leave the money for lunch on the table. I don't believe she can go on or continue spending money from my card. "There's nothing to talk about," I say firmly. "You made your choice. Now live with it." And I walk away, leaving her with her luxurious lunch, half-eaten, and her failed attempts to manipulate me. When I got into my car, the adrenaline wore off and I began to realize the seriousness of the situation. My phone was vibrating non-stop. Sarah was calling. I turned it off and sat there, not knowing what to do next. My rational brain kicked in, probably because I'd spent so many years troubleshooting IT problems. I opened my banking app and started blocking her access to my accounts. I closed my second credit card. Then I transferred most of our joint account to my account. I left myself enough money for a week, much more than she deserved, I would say. Next, it was time for proof. I sent the recording to myself via email and saved it on all 3 devices. A guy walked past the car, and I woke up facing the Bistro Bitch parking lot. Sarah could show up at any moment. I drove straight to the bank. The teller probably guessed that something was wrong. I was shaking as I handed her my ID. "I need to remove someone from my accounts," I told her. Then she fell silent after I explained why I didn't want anything to do with evil and told her about my sister, who had been in almost the same situation. While I was there, Sarah started texting me from her friend Jessica's phone. "You're being ridiculous. Answer your phone. We need to talk like adults." "Yeah, right. Because only adults laugh at each other and despise each other." I blocked Jessica's number too. The bank employee helped me open new accounts because that was the safest solution. I think some people also try to access joint accounts during a divorce. She gave me a packet of information about financial safety during divorce. I never thought I'd need it. Sarah was still texting me on a bunch of random numbers, probably looking through my phone contacts or something. "You can't just cut me off. What am I supposed to do with the money? You're cruel." I blocked the new numbers too. I ran home and grabbed my important documents first. My birth certificate, social security card, passport, everything I always kept in a safe place. At least she hadn't taken those. I went to the safe and... wedding rings. Cash. My grandmother's watch. Everything was there. I had literally just finished gathering my things when I heard her unlock the door. I should have guessed she was just going home. I hurriedly grabbed my bag, and she came in before I could escape. Her makeup was smeared. I guess all's well that ends well. "Damn it, you think you can just walk out?" she yelled, her voice trembling and burning. "You can't just abandon our marriage." I tried to get past her, but she pressed herself against the door. "We need to talk. You can't take my cards, you crazy little pig." That made me stop. "Our account? You mean my account? The first one I opened when I got my first paycheck. The one with all our savings? You, because you decided working was beneath you." Her face turned red. "I take care of our house. That's what we agreed." "No," I said. "You were going to start a home business, you know that. 2 years later, no business, but a lot of lunches I didn't know about." She lunged for my bag. "Give me back my cards. I don't want anything." I pushed her away. I transferred my week's earnings to our joint account. "Call your parents. Call Tom. Call whoever you want. It's not my problem anymore." She started crying again, this time real tears. "Please," she begged. "I made a mistake. I was stupid. We can fix this." I don't know what it was, but when she looked at me and said, "We can fix this," something inside me just broke. Maybe it was the word "we," as if I was somehow responsible for her cheating on me. Or maybe it was everything that had been building up inside me. And she stood there crying, and I stopped looking at her. "Fix what exactly?" I asked. "The fact that you looked down on me for being naive, or the fact that you took my money and spent it on another guy?" I raised my hand again when she tried to grab it. At that moment, she started to panic. "I'll tell everyone that you beat me," she said with an icy calmness that was foreign to her. "I'll say that you were a thug, that you robbed me and kept me chained up in the basement of your house," said Miss Markle. I took out my phone. Her eyes widened. "Go ahead. You made me spend an hour bragging about what you think I did to you. Do you want me to send this to everyone we know?" She changed tactics again and told the latest in a series of harrowing stories about her friend Amy, a woman who had been cleaned out in a divorce by her husband, who had hired some shark lawyer and everything. I guess this was supposed to scare me into staying. My phone was beeping with incoming messages. Now her mother was texting, "Sarah is hysterical. What did you do to her?" Her sister sent her a long message saying that marriage is a job you can't run away from, that it doesn't solve anything. Even my father texted me, and he doesn't even text me. I headed for the door, but Sarah blocked my way. She said she would hurt herself if I didn't stay, that she couldn't live without me. Classic manipulation. At that moment, I started recording on my phone again. I didn't say anything, just let the shit play in my pocket. "Go away," I said. She became hysterical and said she would call the police and tell them I had hit her. I remained calm and continued recording. "In the hallway," I said. "They were installed in our house last year after several packages were stolen." Her face faded. She had forgotten. Then she started bargaining. "We can go to a psychologist. I'll find a job, pay you back every penny. Keep track of my phone, read my messages, all my passwords. Anything. I'll do anything. Anything. Anything to show you I'm sorry." But I didn't like that either. I didn't want to be a husband who controlled his wife. That's not marriage. That's a prison sentence for both of you. "I already called my parents," she continued. "They said you can't just kick me out. I have tenant rights." I almost laughed. "You're not a tenant. You've never paid a single bill. But fine, stay the night. I'll come back tomorrow with the legal papers." That's what scared her. The harsh reality of divorce papers. Then she started throwing unfounded accusations. I worked too much. I didn't pay attention to her. I made her stay home. I was just as bitter and distant. All the classic accusations. My phone rang again. My friend Mike asked if I needed a place to stay. I had texted him earlier just in case. "You know, I know what happened," Lord said in a separate interview after Sarah received the harsh message. "Sarah saw it in the preview and got scared. She started screaming that I had planned it all, that I was looking for a way out. I beat her to the elevator. She just screamed that I was doing the wrong thing, that I would regret it, that no one would ever love me the way she did. The girl yelled until the elevator doors closed. I finally took a deep breath. My phone was flooded with messages, dozens of missed calls, social media notifications, and more. Sarah posted some ambiguous status update about fighting for our marriage. The usual social media nonsense. My neighbor Mike was waiting outside in his car. Good guy, no questions asked. Just opened the trunk so I could get my bag. We drove away, and I caught a glimpse of Sarah in the apartment window as I closed the car door. She probably wanted to see which car I was getting into. She called Mike twice, but he didn't answer. The next morning, reality set in. I woke up in the guest room Mike had prepared for me, under the white ceiling of an unfamiliar apartment, and my phone was full of voicemails from unknown numbers. Sarah had been calling all our friends on their cell phones all night because I had blocked her number. First, I called work. My boss was more forgiving than I expected. He told me to take a week off and sort things out, so I contacted a divorce lawyer who had been recommended to me by a colleague. After listening to my recording, the lawyer made a comment that still haunts me. "Your wife will understand that actions have consequences." Sarah didn't waste any time and immediately took off her mask. By noon, she had practically emptied our joint account. Then she moved on to an emergency-free credit card, which I blocked. And then the real chaos began. She wrote me a long message on Facebook accusing me of leaving her without money. I wrote to my family that I had been controlling the money, that I had forced her to stay and driven her into depression. My sister called me and laughed. Funny, she hadn't said a word about it until today. Without wasting any time, the lawyer drew up the divorce papers. The next morning, while they were waiting for Sarah, she left everything behind. She started throwing my things off the balcony, 19-inch computers, clothes, books, and everything she could grab. The neighbors called the police. "Thanks, damn cameras in the hallway again." She tried to tell the police that I beat her. They didn't believe her. "Ma'am, we saw you throwing things off the balcony," one of the police officers told her. She was given a warning. I was escorted back into the apartment to collect my things. Being in the apartment with the police was a surreal experience, as if I was outside my body. Sarah staggered behind us, her sobs punctuated by screams. She continued to cry and beg us to do it again. When that didn't work, she listed some things she said I had thrown away during our marriage. One of the police officers looked uncomfortable. "This seems more like manipulation than abuse," he muttered. And that weekend I spent the night at Mike's place. We played cards, drank cheap beer, and talked about nothing for hours. "You deserve better than a girl who thinks she has the right to play with your heart and your money." I knew he was right. 3 weeks have passed. Sarah is gone. The money is safe. And I feel refreshed, like I haven't felt in months.